I am privileged, of course, honored to address this group of distinguished Americans participating in the miracle of democracy, not just by talking about it, but by taking part. And I'm very anxious, eager, excited to talk to you in particular about some issues and a problem that I think you, perhaps more than anybody else that I could possibly reach, may be able to do something about. Something that I care deeply about and that I'm trying best I can to awaken everyone to. But before that, I must say right away that one of the lessons of history is there's no such thing as a self-made man or woman. It's a ridiculous expression. It ought to be dropped from usage. Everything that I have achieved in my work, my writing life, my life, is to an indescribable extent because of my partner, my editor-in-chief, my wife, Rosalie. We have a large family, 5 children, 18 grandchildren, and she is mission control. She's also Secretary of the Treasury. And maybe most important of all, Chair of the Ethics Committee. She's the star I steer by, and I would love for you to meet her. Rosalie, where are you sitting? There. Rosalie is the daughter of a state legislator. Her father, Clarence Barnes, served in the Massachusetts legislature for many terms. She grew up knowing a lot, hearing a lot about the life that you live, its problems and its opportunities. When John Adams received the Pulitzer Prize, we got the word on April 8th, which is Rosalie's birthday, and everybody in the family thought that was entirely appropriate. When you hear that you've won the Pulitzer Prize, it's not like those commercials for Publishers Clearinghouse. What happens is that the phone rings about 3:15 in the afternoon, and it's a reporter, and he asks you if you are who you are, and you confirm that you are who you are, and then he asks if you're aware that you just won the Pulitzer Prize. And you say you're not aware of that. And then he asks you how you feel. The first call was from a reporter for the AP, Hillel Talley, and very quickly after that, it must be on the crawl on CNN, the phone began to ring, and with more reporters calling. David McCullough from the Boston Globe, Bob Hoover from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is my hometown. National Public Radio, USA Today, and just kept ringing, and then friends and relatives from elsewhere began calling. Because it was Rosalie's birthday, our 2 daughters were with us with some of their children. And it was very exciting. Neighbors came by. And things didn't quiet down until about 7 o'clock that night, over deep phone calls. And finally we were able to sit down to a nice, quiet family dinner, and just as we began, the phone rang again. And Rosalie got up to answer, and we could hear her say, yes. Yes. Well, I don't know. Let me see. Just a minute, please. And she covered the phone with her hand, and she said, "It's Claire Cartwright from the Christian Science Monitor. Are you willing to talk to her?" And I said, "Oh, Sure. So I got up and went into the living room and picked up the other phone and said hello, and she said, Mr. McCullough? I said, yes. She said, this is Claire Cartwright from the Christian Science Monitor. And I said, yes. She said, I wonder if you're aware of our special 23-week trial subscription. A few months ago, on a campus in California, unnamed campus in California, during a question and answer period, I was asked, aside from Harry Truman and John Adams, how many other presidents have you interviewed? Appearances notwithstanding, I did not know John Adams. I never had the chance to talk with him, or Mr. Truman. But I do feel I know them. In fact, in some ways I feel I know them better than I know people in real life, because I have read their letters, their diaries. I have walked the walk, literally, of their lives. I have learned all about their families, their friends, their finances, their regrets, their mistakes, their weaknesses, and their extraordinary ability to face difficult situations in the service of our country. And I have come to respect them in a way that I hope I've been able to convey in my work, not as Superman, not as godlike characters, but as human beings. And I think it's particularly important to remember that the founders, those we hold in such esteem as we should, were by no means gods. In fact, if they were gods, they wouldn't deserve as much credit as they get, because gods, after all, can do whatever they want. They couldn't do whatever they wanted, and they were up against the most horrendous obstacles, odds, uncertainties imaginable. Now, the lessons of history are innumerable. They are clear, and they are all worth knowing. Unfortunately, and this is what I want so much to talk about this morning, those lessons are going right by most of our young people. We have been raising for about 25 years, generations of young Americans who are by and large historically illiterate. And it's not their faults. We must not blame them for what they have not been taught. And it's serious and it's real. I have lectured or spoken over the last 10 years at more than 100 colleges and universities all across everywhere in the country. I know these young Americans. I know how bright they are. I know how personable and appealing they are. And I also know how much they don't know. How much they don't know about what many of us grew up learning when we were in grade school. It hit me with a huge jolt one day at the University of Missouri, where I spoke in a morning session. And a young woman came up, a sophomore, and she said she was very glad she came to hear me that morning, because until then she never understood that the original 13 colonies were all on the East Coast.